I'm so excited about our guest today. She is a nurse practitioner that specializes in aesthetics. Please help me to introduce nurse practitioner Melanie.
Hello, my name is Melanie Bivins. I am a board certified family nurse practitioner. I also have a critical care certification behind my name, which is a little unusual for this field, but that's where I came from first, and I must honor it. I'm very excited to be here and to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the industry and how to start your own business and be successful at it and all that good stuff.
Yes. I'm sure everybody's going to learn a lot.
I hope so.
Hi, my name is Jonathan McLean, and I'm the founder and CEO of McLean Aesthetics.
Welcome to the dark side.
Let's go.
Melanie, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Good. I'm glad to have you here. I can't wait to dive into the questions.
Let's do it.
Nice. So tell me, are you from the Florida area?
Born and raised.
Nice.
South Florida. I went to Palm Beach Central High School in Wellington, and then UCF for undergrad and for my master's. So I've been here my whole life.
Nice. All those are good schools. What made you want to become a family nurse practitioner? How did you get into that field? Tell me a little bit about that.
So my background was all in acute care. So I worked in the hospital at the bedside for many years.
Wow.
I worked in trauma and specialized finally in intensive care. So a lot of multi-system dysfunction. And honestly, my heart got tired. It's the only way I can describe it is you just see a lot of really heavy things. And I kind of needed a break emotionally because I like to carry things. Not that I like to, it's just that's kind of how I am. So I decided I wanted to go into something a little bit happier.
Yeah.
But my intention was actually never aesthetics. I wanted to do primary care, pulmonary, something like that, where I could see patients in the office, build a repertoire with them, know them for as long as they want to know me. And I actually had a family member get diagnosed with a terminal illness, and it took the last bit of, I guess, emotion I had out of me, and I decided I needed a complete change. And it actually made really good sense because I was an art major, I was a fashion model, I always did all my friends' makeup before going out and birthday parties and things, so I kind of had a natural niche for it, but I never thought I would end up here. So that's kind of how I got into it. It sort of fell in my lap, and then I decided I wanted to start my own business doing it, and here we are.
Nice. Super cool. So being in aesthetics is hard enough, right? You have to have the confidence to really pick up a needle, inject in someone's face. What made you feel so confident to do that starting off?
Truly, I think it comes I have a natural eye, I would say, to be able to see someone's face and kind of recognize the areas that might need a little bit of accentuating. And again, I think that comes from my history as a fashion model. You know, you're kind of exposed to a lot of that stuff. But the confidence, I would say, you just gotta have it in this industry. You gotta go for it and know that you're doing your best and find people that are willing to let you, quote unquote, experiment on them. I mean, you're not experimenting on them. You know what you're doing, but for the first time, it's scary. And having the cojones to just go for it is, you just got to find it somewhere deep down and pull it out and just do it.
I
Safely, of course.
Did you attend any trainings before, or how long did you practice before you actually started?
So I did a training through the Aesthetic Skin Institute. It was about a week-long course.
Nice.
It was really basic information. I would say I have learned significantly more information on my own than I did through that program. I mean, obviously, it's a basic understanding of what you're doing. But I started immediately after that. I had my friends and my family come over, and I just went to town learning on their faces, and they let me do it. And luckily, everyone makes mistakes, don't get me wrong, and I've made plenty of them, but nothing was bad. It was all something like, oh, maybe there's a little subtle asymmetry that I needed to fix further kind of thing. So if that answers the question.
It does. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I get so many providers call me and ask, well, I can't get in. I'm having such a hard time getting in. And I tell them, hey, you got to first just go for it. You know what I mean? You got to do the training. You got to be safe. You got to know, something around what's going on, but you have to practice. And build a portfolio of work. That's the only way you're going to get in.
Absolutely. And I think too, what gets missed a lot is the why things work, if that makes sense. So they kind of give you like a basic understanding of like which muscle groups to target, but not understanding which muscles are elevators, for example, or which muscles are depressors, and why you want them to work together. Or there's a lot more information, I think, that will help your practice if you really understand the anatomy of the face and how the muscles work and why you have depressive fibers here. So if you inactivate here with Botox, sometimes you get a flat eyebrow because there's an overcompensation of this lateral fibering here. So I always put a little bit of Botox on that lateral aspect of the eyebrow to make sure we don't get flat eyebrows. So understanding how the anatomy works is so, so, so important. And I feel like a lot of injectors, or at least education programs, kind of glaze over that. But I think it's imperative in making your results natural and look good and, counteract any other imbalances that can happen.
Is there any advice you would give to new providers that are looking to enter the industry that are feeling frustrated, just don't know what to do?
I would say the best thing you can do truly is a training program to get, so you have a certification behind your name, something to say like, hey, I've been through this, I have a basic understanding. And then reaching out to as many providers as you can find to see if someone will let you shadow, because getting the experience, and granted, they're probably not going to let you touch the patient, but you will get to see the use of cannulas and at least hopefully, get exposure to the different products and how they work and why they work the way that they work. So you have even better of an understanding, but just reach out until you find someone who'll say, yeah, come and shadow me for 6 hours and go from there. That would be my recommendation.
And I agree with that too. And I give that advice also, because when you're networking with a provider, when you're shadowing a provider, it's not only just shadowing, you're networking into their network. Sure. It might be a job opportunity. It might be a learning opportunity. There's so much to gain from really speaking to a provider. So,
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Now, there's this big debate on Instagram, needle versus cannula. And I know you have a favorite, and I would love for you to speak on why that's your favorite and tell us which one is.
So I will preface this by saying there are certain instances where serial needle puncture are absolutely a better way to go, depending on the type of volume you want to build. But especially in like younger clients, I have found that the cannula can pretty much do everything the serial puncture can do. Not talking about the lips, because you really can't do cannula easily in the lips. It's really painful and kind of a strange. The lips are so dynamic, so I would not recommend cannula or even trying it on the lips. But for example, along, your zygoma here, we have fat pads here, we have fat pads here, and fat pads basically all over your face. But that's what contributes to the look of aging. So the point of these fillers is to actually restore those fat pads to, make the face look a little more youthful. And there's a way that we can get to them, the deep fat pads, with the cannula. So these cannulas, they're blunt tip needles basically, and they weave through the tissue. You have an entry point that I usually put right along the zygoma, the top part of it here, and you thread the instrument in deeply. You pinch the tissue so you can actually get along that bone, and then you apply the product in kind of a retrograde fashion as you're injecting, and it's really so much safer than that serial puncture technique. There's less damage, there's less risk of vascular occlusion. Granted, there's still risk of that, but it's way reduced. And especially if you're using the correct cannula size. So anything less than a 25 gauge, that's what you want to be at. Anything, smaller than that may put you at a higher risk for it. But the reality is it's just a safer way to do things. And there's less, in my opinion, risk of scarring over time. And the healing process is a lot better. You don't have bruises everywhere. But that being said, there are certain instances where the serial puncture is going to do better. So knowing where it fits and where it doesn't is really important. And it takes time to learn that. That's not something, one recipe doesn't fit everybody. So taking in someone's total face and, their skincare regimen is even something you have to consider when you're trying to decide how you want to approach. But I have to say, I do love the cannula where it's appropriate. And most of the time there is a way to sneak it in there, especially with under eyes. That's my go-to. I will forever do under eyes with cannula. Although I can do it the other way, I do prefer the cannula there. It's definitely safer, definitely less risky.
Yeah, that's what I hear also too.
Yeah.
And I hear that's the best way to go. What made you when did you realize that, hey, the cannula was the best way? Or That's what I'm gonna go for.
Honestly, it just made sense to me. I
Okay.
learned about it at the Aesthetic Skin Institute,
Nice.
but it was so brief of like an overview. And I'm like, wait, rewind. Oh, hold on. What are you talking about? Like, I wanted to know what that was because I was like, well, people are so worried about like, oh my gosh, my husband's going to know that I did something. And, nothing against husbands, but sometimes us women, we want to be a little more private with what we're doing. And, so I felt like there was a way that it was like sneaky to be able to like do nasolabial folds using, one point here instead of serially puncturing along that, anyway. So I just started to experiment with it straight up. That's what I did. I was like, all right, I'm getting cannulas and I'm going to figure out where it's appropriate on the face, how to use it on the face. And I just went to town. I just decided I wanted to experiment and do it. And I did. And now most of my practice is done with cannula where appropriate.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Like your own little niche. That's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. Very cool. It's a cool way to do it.
Yes, for sure. Now, speaking of your own business, you started your own business, and congratulations on that, honestly.
Thank
It's
you.
very hard. No, it's very hard to go from being a provider in a med spa, them handling everything for you, to actually you running that all for yourself.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you experienced, and what made you want to start your own business?
Well, I went into my own business having no experience in a med spa at all. I started like from scratch and just decided that I wanted to run it my own way.
Yeah.
Like I had seen a lot of work that I wasn't favorable of, if that makes sense. Like people were a little overdone or they looked a little unnatural. And I was like, I want to be as natural as possible. I want women to feel empowered to face aging confidently, to be like, I might be this age, but I've done something to help myself feel like I feel mentally.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what happens is we age physically, but our brains don't catch up as quickly. You know what I mean? So you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, like what happened? So the point of why I started that business is really to be sneaky, to kind of restore the youth without making women look overdone. So and to do that, I feel like you kind of needed, at least at the time, I felt like I needed to figure out how to do it on my own. I didn't see a lot of that out there where they're taking the entire face into account. Even, adding a little bit of filler above the eyebrows can do so much for someone's face and the way that they look. So I didn't learn that until I was experimenting with faces, but that's how I started. So the challenge, I would say, would be really, having some guidance, but not most of it being on you to figure out is one thing. And then, of course, I started my business in 2020. So right when COVID hit, somehow I was still profitable that year. Don't ask me how. I don't know how, but your timing is really important. And I feel like right now we're at a point in time when everyone's interested in doing Botox and fillers and wanting to help maintain the way that they look. And I think, now is a good time to just go for it. But, and then learning the legal part of it. Obviously, I hired a lawyer to try to figure out how to make sure all of my documents were accurate and I was protected and the license I was working under is protected, which is actually a dentist. You can do that in Florida, work under a dentist license. There are some other states that you can do that. But here in Florida, that's how I ended up, doing what I do is under a dentist license. Yes. So the lawyer helped me kind of understand, your scope of practice. You need to have that written out and what to do in case of emergency. And, and if there's any sort of emergency, you contact your overseeing medical director on like, hey, this happened. Just wanted you to know, a lot of the time, luckily in the industry, if you know what you're doing, the risk of complications is a lot less, but it doesn't completely mean that you're safe, obviously. So having someone to be able to manage or help you manage a complication is really important. But that's kind of how it happened, I guess. And I had to go through, the Florida board of whatever to get my business established. You have to pay a certain amount every year. So it doesn't come without cost. Starting your own business is costly. The education, the lawyer fees, the making aesthetic concepts mine, having a CPA to kind of help with the books because that gets very overwhelming. And then there was, malpractice insurance. Obviously, you need to have something to cover you, even though this isn't a very litigious field. Because like I said, hyaluronic acid is reversible with hyaluronidase and Botox wears off. And, the probability of there being a long-term issue is really minor. You still want protection. Like, I don't care how good you are. You need to be prepared in the event that something like that happens. So those are like the 5 main things that I probably would say started the business. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and that makes sense a lot. I think those are good 5 things, especially, well, all of them you name, but particularly, I know a couple of lawyers in the industry that are med spa lawyers only, and I think they're so important because, like you said, they teach you so much about just the laws and regulations. And some people, they might not be intentionally doing something wrong or like trying to cheat the system, but they're doing it wrong, and then they get caught, and it's like your license,
and the overseeing provider's license as well. And then there's all these things about kickbacks where you know you need to make sure that what you're doing is legal.
Yeah.
And you know, the good thing about my business is it's Botox, it's fillers, that's it. I don't offer lasers. I don't offer any of the other, you know, really things that might be a little more dangerous, I would say. So, you know, there's something to be said about having a specialty. You know, sometimes I feel like if you're a little bit too spread too thin, you can't have something that is like, I know this and I know it well, because you know so many things. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
So I feel like that's another reason I didn't want to branch into anything else, is I want this to be what I do and what I'm known for.
Do you do your own procedures?
On myself?
Yeah.
I do my own Botox. And I actually have no upper lip naturally. And it used to drive me nuts in pictures because I'd like smile and I'd just like go in. And so I have my upper lip done, which I have been meaning to touch up, but I have a 3-month-old baby at home. So there's not much time. Not much time.
No, because I asked that question because I get so many different mixed reactions when I ask that. Some people are like, yes, I do my own. And some people are like, I would never, I don't even trust myself to do it.
Oh, I don't trust anyone else to touch my face.
Wow.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing against other people. I just know that I've developed a way that I do things, and I know how my musculature works and what doses work for me for the Botox. And it's so funny because I'm not kidding you. If you had told me 5 years ago that this is what I would be doing, I'd be like, lies. I never in a million years pegged this as like, but it makes perfect sense for me. And I'm really happy doing it. And I'm glad I don't have to see any more suffering.
Yeah.
That was something I'm glad that I don't have to,
definitely
do anymore. Everyone's happy when they leave my office. So that's always good. It's positive.
That's good. That's really good. Yeah. And I like that too. That's why I like this industry too, honestly.
Oh, it's so happy.
Yeah.
And do you know about the research on Botox that I want to say it was 2021, July 2021 or July 2020, where they had kind of, if I remember correctly, and forgive me, I don't have the study off the top of my head, but I want to say it was an analysis of a bunch of different studies they had done where there actually is some support for Botox as a potential antidepressant.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are people looking better and like liking what they see in the mirror, that makes a huge difference in how you feel about yourself. But there's also a potential neurochemical component to it. And one of the theories that I thought was so interesting on it is, you have your depressive muscles, and when you're frowning, I can't do it because I'm Botoxed, but when you're frowning, it's sending a signal to your brain like, hey, I'm frowning, I'm upset, or, it's giving it a signal that we're not in the best position. So if you're no longer making those expressions, your brain's no longer getting the signal like, hey, I'm angry. So that might be one reason why it's a potential antidepressant. And it's really fascinating to me. I think that there's so much more to this than we're just now touching the surface of like the implications. But I can't tell you how many patients I've had where you treat them and they feel so good about the way that they look that they're like, I have started working out. I have started changing my diet. Like I feel so good the way that I look. Like I want the rest of me to match. Yeah. And that is so important. It's so important. Mental health is like, one of the things that whatever we can do to help people feel good, we should be doing it. So,
especially in this time that we're in right now, where everything is so sensitive around, I feel like people always want to control what they can. You know what I mean? And having the ability to control how you look, how you feel, it's something that's just sacred. So
absolutely. And I think we're losing the stigma against it now, which is great, because there was that stigma for a long time where it's like, oh, you don't want to look done, or like, oh, and it's like, who cares? Are you happy? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like if you're happy with the way that you look and you feel better, who cares what anybody else says? But now I feel like it's a lot calmer and nobody really cares or bats an eye anymore. And that's great.
Yeah. I want to say like maybe a year ago, I knew a pastor that was getting it done. Like, it's so socially acceptable for everybody to get it done now.
It is.
Yeah.
I keep trying to talk my husband into getting him on his forehead. He'll never let me do it. But like while he's sleeping, I want to go in there and be like, "Hey, we just like, shh, don't worry, everything's fine." And just like do it really fast. He would freak out if he woke up and I had a needle in his face.
Yeah.
But yes, no, it's very open now, which is good.
That's good.
Good for business too.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
What trends are you seeing right now in the market that are interesting?
Everyone wants to look natural.
Okay.
That's what I'm finding, which is amazing for my business because that is my specialty, like natural.
Yeah.
But I have seen people who actually want to get filler dissolved, where they've had it done and they're overdone and they don't like it anymore. So I think we are definitely moving away from like the big to like a more balanced look.
Do you ever get like somebody that come in your office and say, "Hey, I want to look like this celebrity or this person, influencer"? Okay.
Never. Which I'm really grateful for. I always have my older clients bring in older as in like probably this might be offensive, but like even 35 and up, bring in a picture of what they looked like when they were younger. So that allows me to kind of see like, oh, you've lost some volume here. This is where I want to target. It gives me a better idea on like how they've aged. So then I can restore them. Because a lot of the people that come in, they just want to look like they did 5-10 years ago. They don't want to look like someone else. They just want to look like how they feel they should look mentally. That makes
so much sense because they say aesthetics is only supposed to be used to like enhance your natural beauty, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're trying to get something that's not physically possible, it's not physically possible.
And that's something you have to learn too.
Yeah.
And I believe I mentioned to you one point before about knowing the amount that you need in order to achieve a look, right? And that's something that I struggled with at the beginning. I was so afraid to overdo somebody that I would use way less than I needed, right? And then they'd come back and I would do more and I'd build on it. And I still use that practice a lot. Yeah. But now I have the ability to say, hey, let's start here, but I have a feeling we're going to need this much. But let's start at a conservative amount, let you heal, and then you come back and we can kind of, add more if we need to. And that's the beauty of the cannula. You're not serially puncturing them and then 3 weeks later doing it again. You're able to just use one puncture point, maybe two, to get to the area that you need to, and it's not as damaging to the tissue. The healing process isn't as long. So, but yeah, that's something I think takes just experience, is kind of learning the amount that you're going to need.
Yeah, no, definitely. Now, you spoke a lot about branding, and I don't know if you noticed it, but you've talked about like keeping the natural look, have your clients come in and really keep staying true to yourself with the natural look. How do you, if you get a client that maybe is not into that, or how do you keep on brand with everything, basically?
I don't, luckily, since, let's start that over.
Yeah.
I don't advertise.
Gotcha.
So everyone that I see is word of mouth from a friend that I've treated. And because those friends tend to want, they're all similar. So they kind of, if their friend looks natural, they kind of want that natural look. So I've been able to kind of keep it to like a select group of people that are interested in natural looks. However, I have had a couple patients that want something that I don't feel comfortable providing, in which case I will tell them, I don't know that I'm the provider for you. And a lot of the times they'll end up letting me do what I think is best for them anyway. And then they love it and it's fine and they don't need any more and they're good with it. But you have to know when to turn someone away, because there is something out there called dysmorphia. And we are seeing it a lot, where you'll see young women who have done so much chin filler and so much cheek filler and so much lip filler that they look, they don't look good. And we know this and we can see it, but they don't see it. They have a dysmorphic look when they see themselves in the mirror and they think it looks good to them. And everyone else, you're like, oh, Lord have mercy. What'd you do to your face? You're a sea creature. You know what I mean? Like, ooh. So I think that knowing when to turn somebody away, and also knowing when you can't help them. Certain age groups, there is a point in time when you're like, listen, filler is not going to give you lift. It's going to help restore some stuff, but it's not going to give you what you're looking for. And telling them your money is better spent seeing a plastic surgeon for a facelift or a blepharoplasty or a buccal fat transplant or whatever it might be. So knowing limitations on what you could do is important. Yeah. So that's the other part of it.
Is it important to have, because I know you just mentioned plastic surgeon, counselor, things like that. Is it important to have like a network or community of those people that you partner with, or?
I think so. I think it's really important to have people you recommend for those things. And I think a lot of the time, your recommendation, people kind of want to do their own research, is what I've learned. So even though I might say, hey, I think this doctor does really good work, I would recommend seeing them, they may or may not go. So I've kind of learned to just not recommend anybody and just let them kind of do their homework and go to their own, because I don't know enough people, I feel like, that I could comfortably say, this person is the best at this, and this person is the best at this, to be able to guide them appropriately. So I usually just let them make their own calls and recommend maybe one or two that I know of in the area and go from there. Let them decide.
Super cool. Super cool.
Yeah.
Now, I know you talk about a little bit about all your clients being word of mouth. And it's so cool that you said that, because I feel like if you have good service, people are going to recommend, and it's a cool thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are using social media these days to gain clientele, to claim more brand awareness, things of that nature. Have you used social media to do that, or how impactful has social media been to your career?
I would say I have an Instagram page where I'll post before and afters on the clients that allow me to do so. Again, rewind real quick on the legal stuff. If you're going to be using someone's photos, they need to consent to it, and they need to know what platforms you're going to be using them on. So just FYI, and especially with, my practice being a little bit more of a natural conservative sort of approach, a lot of my patients do not want their pictures out there. So it is kind of challenging to find patients who are willing to be like, yes, show my before and afters. I'm happy to share with other people. But anyway, so that I feel like has kind of hindered my ability to be able to use social media as much as I would like to. Granted, there are pictures on there are before and afters, but I have treated way, way more people than I could ever put out there. So I think if you're, able to find clients that are willing to do that, it's a much more impactful thing, because then you can advertise those before and afters. But for me personally, I feel like it hasn't been something that I've used. I do see a ton of work. That's something else you can do if you're wanting to get into the industry, is follow a bunch of injectors, because you will see a lot of people posting before and afters and the techniques that they used. And a lot of the posts that I put up, I like to elaborate on how I did things and why I did them that way. At the end of the day, we're healthcare providers, and our goal is to do the most good for the most people. So sharing what you know and what you've learned, I think a lot of people have that mentality, which is great. And that's something I recommend continuing. Even if you come up with your own ways of doing things, share them, because we want to help as many people as we can, and the safest way possible. But yeah, so I would say it's definitely something, but not something that has really impacted my business personally, I would say.
Yeah. I know a little bit before behind the scenes, we were talking about how personal you have to be to your clients, right? They want to know you.
Yeah.
They want to know like who you are as a brand, as a person, and where they're spending their money at.
Yeah.
How do you keep that balance? Like, do you share? How do you know how much to share, when to share, things like that?
That's a really good question. All my clients have my personal cell phone number, so that they can call me or contact me if there's an issue, or if they, need something urgently because they have a wedding in 2 weeks that they forgot about, so, and I actually do house calls, which is something that has been really great for my business. There's certain things I don't do with house calls, like, for example, cheeks and under. I can do lips in the back of a car if I wanted to. Not that I would do that. And Botox, like anywhere. Not that I would do that either. But I think finding the balance, honestly, I'm an open book. Like, I sent a lot of my clients pictures of my brand new baby when she came. Like, you become friends with these people. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that, so long as you have the capacity in your own personal life to be open to that. But really, I think a lot of my clients are now friends, truly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think it's your own personal limitations, though. And if you want to start up your own business and you're not looking to have that kind of a connection with people, I would recommend getting a separate phone. That's a work cell phone. So you can turn it off after hours, because sometimes on Saturdays and Sundays I'll get texts, and I don't like to work Saturdays, Sundays. It's family time for me personally and my family unit. But I would say that you need to kind of know yourself in that regard, and what you can handle as far as how many people are going to text you when your baby comes. You know what I mean? Like, so, and I think honesty is really important with your clients, and letting them know, like, hey, you know what? I might have put that Botox too low. That's why your eyebrows aren't moving as much as last time. Next time I'll make a note, and next time we'll make sure that we move it up. Whatever it is, I think being honest with people is so important in this industry, instead of being like, oh, the product is wrong. I mean, granted, there are some times when I switch products and it gives a different result, and I can say, hey, I think it's because we used this neurotoxin and not this neurotoxin, and that's why you're getting this result. But if you've done something that you think, you can improve on, I don't think there's anything wrong with telling people that and having humility and saying, you know what, next time I want to try this. If you didn't really like that result, I think I know a different way that we can do it where I think you will like it. And then people are a lot more inclined to come back to you and see you because you're working with them.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think it's a trust, right?
Yeah.
Anything, like even like when I'm speaking to different med spas or even in my business, like it's trust that I know you're going to tell me the truth of what's going on, and that, I can trust you to really do business with you, or to trust you to fix my, like you're literally doing a medical procedure in someone's face, you know what I mean?
And it's their face, man. Like I used to think it was serious and intensive care. And don't get me wrong, that's some serious stuff, but like faces are really intense. Like it's a different kind of thing, but it's still one of those things where like, you got to be willing to accept and admit if you've done something wrong and know how to fix it. And, those patients, even if you do something wrong, like they're a lot more likely to still see you, because now what if they go to another provider and the same thing happens and they have to start all over again? I feel like that happens a lot. Like I can tell you how many patients come in and they're like, oh, I had bad Botox. I never went back to them. I'm like, why? Did you tell them? Did you let them know that you like what you didn't like about the Botox? Because it might have been something that's a simple tweak, but everyone's face is so different. And I think also chemistry is different. Like I have certain products that last longer on a select few patients and certain products that last longer on these patients. And you have to kind of be able to be open to figuring out what works best for your particular chemistry. And I think that there's a lot of like jumping from provider to provider. Luckily, that doesn't happen to me. Like once I get somebody, they're mine and I love them and it's great. But I do get a lot of patients that say that to me. And I feel like that's something I would like people to be a little bit more open to, allowing the practitioners to learn their faces.
Yeah.
So I don't remember what the point of the question was or how I got there.
Oh, you got it. Okay. Now, I've been noticing on social media, there's so many new celebrity skincare lines, from Kim K to J-Lo to everyone in between. Yeah. What is your thoughts on that?
I think it's another chemistry question. I think everyone's face is different. And I think that you kind of have to just experiment and find out what works for you. So for me personally, I love Dermalogica. Yeah. That works fantastic for my skin. I recommend my patients try it if they're looking for a skincare regimen. However, I don't have all the secrets to all the skincare stuff. So I it's hard to know. Yeah. But I do think trial and error, like try it, see if it works for you. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't work for you, then try the next one.
Yeah. So what are two like simple skincare tips that anybody can follow if they're looking to kind of get on that path? Exfoliation, very important. A lot of the issues we see with skin in general is coming from the fact that the pores are clogged or the skin's not, being able to regenerate because it's covered in a layer of dead skin cells. So exfoliation is really important. Usually a couple times a week we'll do the trick. And then moisturizing, having a good moisturizer that's going to lock in moisture. And moisturizers are really hard to come by. And I, am kind of not crazy, but I would say that I'm scared of a lot of products out there because they're loaded with chemicals. Yeah. And the reality is we're starting to recognize that maybe a lot of these chemicals are really bad for our bodies. And, for example, parabens, phthalates, fragrance itself, actually mimics estrogen, and it can really screw with your system. Yeah. That's why I think we're having a lot of thyroid dysfunction and a lot of things like that happening, from a lot of the products we're putting on our body and our hair. The soaps we're using, they're, in a way, they're kind of toxic. So I try not to push that on people because, I don't want to be overbearing, but I do think that it's really important to look into what you're putting on your skin, because I think we are maybe making ourselves infertile and messing with a lot of different aspects of health. No, I completely agree. Like a short period in my life, I worked for like a law firm that their whole thing was to represent people that had claims against products, right?
Yeah.
And there were so many products that people were getting so many side effects from.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is exactly true.
And I mean, it goes back to even something as simple as omeprazole, for example. It's a proton pump inhibitor. It's a fantastic drug. It's an antacid. And it's something that people were on chronically for a really long time. And they, all of a sudden, all these patients were being diagnosed with severe osteoporosis, which is like holes in the bones, basically. Yeah. And they found out later on that omeprazole was actually reducing the body's ability to take in calcium. So all these patients were ending up with like bone issues from this drug. So there's a lot of things that they obviously didn't know that when they developed the drug. And it wasn't until some 20 years later or something they figured it out. Yeah. But I feel like that's starting to happen a little bit in the beauty industry. And we're recognizing now, like, oh, shoot, wait a minute. Some of these things that we've been putting on our bodies are actually toxic. They're bad. So I think it's starting to kind of come to light a little bit. You'll see a lot more like a natural or organic sort of companies popping up here and there. And I think those are the ones I would recommend people try rather than, some of the products. Like, I hate to name call anybody, but even Neutrogena has kind of a bad rap for a lot of its chemicals that are in its products. So, just be mindful, I think, of what you're putting on your body, because your skin's the biggest organ on the entire body. So it will absorb and it will get into your system, and it's important to know. Very
cool. Very, very, very cool. Is there one or two people on social media that people can follow to really gain a lot of insight?
Well, funny you ask. Yes. There's actually 3 people that I kind of like.
Oh, nice.
My favorite one is probably, her name is Nicola. She has N2 Aesthetics in California, and she does amazing stuff. She's another naturalist, so a lot of what I have learned, I have picked up from her. So she's really, really good, and she's super educational, and she will talk you through everything. She's great. The other one is Dr. Doan. She's really good too. A lot of her stuff is very natural. And then there is one Dr. Pierce, who is really great about complications. And, I have like a touch of anxiety about complications, just as any provider should, because, you don't want to mess up. But if you do, knowing how to handle it's really important. So he does a lot of specials on complications. So those are probably the 2 to 3 that I would say I really enjoy and learn a lot from.
One of the cool things that just came to my mind is, can you put Botox all over the body?
Yes.
Nice.
You can.
Do you do it?
No,
okay.
I don't. I stick to the face as like my specialty. But you can, use Botox under the armpits for hyperhidrosis, which is, over sweating, if you will. Although you would need a ton of Botox in order to accomplish that, and then you'd have to keep getting it. I know a lot of patients get Botox for migraines, where they'll put a bunch of Botox along the musculature in the back of the head and stuff. And I actually have a couple clients that come in to see me with the rest of their Botox left over, and I inject it cosmetically for them. But I just stick to the face, although I know that there are, initially Botox was invented to treat things like torticollis, which is like a kinked neck, if you will, and like spasms in the face and things like that. So they didn't realize there was a cosmetic use for it until they started experimenting with it. And they're like, well, hang on now. This is pretty smart. But it was therapeutic at first. That was its entire intention.
Super cool. Super cool. Yeah, I see people putting it in the palms now too.
For sweat?
Yeah.
Oh,
super cool. I was like, wow.
That's also something I've learned too. I'm a runner, so whenever I do have my Botox done to my forehead, I notice I don't break out as bad when I'm running because I'm not sweating as much in that area.
Yeah.
So something that I think, Botox is amazing. There's a lot of really cool stuff.
Will that prevent because I know a lot of when you lose weight, it comes through sweat, it comes through other things, right? Does that, if you get Botox, right, the sweat's not coming out as much, is that preventing it? Like, are you?
I don't think so. No, I think, since we're not treating like major surface areas, it's pretty minor what we're doing. And I still sweat a little bit, but it's not as much, I would say. But I don't think it will make you toxic or anything.
Yeah.
You just drink a lot of water. We'll flush it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Is there any conferences or trainings that you would recommend that you've been to, or that you want to go to, or that people should go to?
Oh yeah, I think conferences and continuing education is really important. I haven't had any come up where I really was like, yes, I want to, one, afford the tickets to fly there and to do it, right? Because really the last year of my business, I've been pregnant and now have a 3-month-old. So I only had my business about 2 years before then, and I felt like I was still learning myself, and I didn't want to quite get into that yet. But now that my daughter's a little older, my intention is to probably attend 2 conferences a year to get more interesting information and how to do things. And there are new products, I believe, that are supposed to be coming out relatively soon. How to use them and the indications for those particular products would be something to be, learning. But as far as conferences go, there are a lot of them. But I would say Allergan puts on really good conferences. And I do feel like Allergan has really good training as well. So that would be probably my recommendation. Galderma does a lot of really good stuff as well. That's the Restylane brand. So I would say looking to either of those 2 manufacturers who actually make the product, they're going to be the ones that are probably going to be the best to guide you on how to use them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I can definitely agree with that. Definitely agree. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and speaking more about the aesthetic industry, your passion, and your business. Tell everybody where they can find you and what you have planned next.
You can find me in Boca. Nice. I work up there. You can contact me via my website. I'm going to put that out there until you're my patient, and then I'll give you my cell phone number. But my website is aesthetic-concepts, and it's aesthetic with an E, spelt the American way, aesthetic-concepts.com. And there's all my information on there about pricing and all that stuff, booking, availability, things like that. I'm now only working on Tuesdays and Fridays while I have my baby. And I plan to kind of keep it that way. So I do have limited availability, but luckily my patients make it work for me. And what's next? I would say just continuing to grow my business and continuing to learn and become the best provider that I can be for my people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And until next time, bye.
Thank you. Bye.